key military capabilities such as launch infrastructure, unmanned systems facilities, and integrated defense networks, resulting in a notable shift in the balance of visible activity across the region. Despite these developments, it became increasingly clear through multiple assessments that even after sustained damage to infrastructure and reduced operational output, significant strategic capabilities remained intact within deeply secured and distributed systems, suggesting that the overall capacity for continued activity had not been fully eliminated. Underground facilities, reinforced storage networks, and concealed logistical systems were believed to still contain substantial resources, indicating that long-term strategic reserves were still available despite the ongoing pressure of the conflict. As intelligence continued to develop, military and geopolitical analysts emphasized that the situation remained highly unstable and unpredictable, with both sides maintaining the ability to adjust strategies rapidly in response to changing conditions on the ground. The broader region continued to experience heightened tension, with international observers closely monitoring developments due to the potential global implications of sustained escalation, particularly in relation to energy routes, economic stability, and regional security frameworks. Ultimately, despite temporary fluctuations in intensity and reported reductions in certain types of activity, the overall situation remained unresolved, with underlying tensions still present and the potential for renewed escalation continuing to exist, making it clear that this was not a concluded event but an ongoing and evolving geopolitical crisis with far-reaching consequences. This is no longer just a regional conflict between Israel and Iran. It is rapidly evolving into something far more dangerous. The war is spreading beyond its original borders as new actors begin to position themselves on the edge of the battlefield. Groups like the Houthis have openly threatened to join the fight, signaling that the conflict could expand into the Red Sea and surrounding strategic waterways, while other nations across the Middle East are now on high alert, watching every move with growing concern. What was once a contained confrontation is now becoming a regional pressure point, where every missile launch, every retaliation, and every political decision risks triggering a wider chain reaction. Behind the scenes, global powers are no longer just observers. They are calculating their next steps. The United States is closely monitoring the situation, with military assets already positioned in key areas, ready for rapid response if the conflict escalates further. Russia is watching for strategic advantage, weighing its geopolitical influence and potential involvement, while China is deeply concerned about energy routes, trade stability, and the safety of global supply chains. The fear among world leaders is not just about a Middle Eastern war anymore. It is about escalation, miscalculation, and the possibility that a single wrong move could pull major superpowers directly into confrontation. If this conflict continues to expand at its current pace, it could transform from a regional war into a global crisis, disrupting oil markets, shaking global economies, and reshaping the balance of power across the world. What happens next may determine not only the future of the Middle East, but the stability of the entire international system. In a world where tensions quietly shape the future of nations, a powerful geopolitical struggle unfolds across the Middle East, where every decision carries the weight of survival, influence, and fear. Inside heavily secured war rooms, leaders gather around glowing digital maps of the region, watching every movement with calculated silence. as Israel and Iran remain at the center of a growing strategic confrontation that the world watches with concern. Military command centers flicker with radar data, satellites track movements across borders, and high-level discussions continue behind closed doors, all while the region stands on a fragile edge. On one side, advanced defense systems and air units prepare for any possible threat, while on the other, underground facilities and strategic bases operate under extreme secrecy, reflecting a deep sense of vulnerability and determination. Across oceans, global powers observe closely as naval fleets and air assets position themselves in key regions, signaling that the balance of influence is no longer local, but international. Meanwhile, soldiers train, systems activate, and nations prepare not for war alone, but for the possibility of escalation they hope to avoid. The Middle East becomes a symbolic chessboard where every move is strategic, every decision irreversible, and every action potentially transformative. Yet beneath the displays of power lies a deeper reality. Leaders on all sides believe they are acting in defense, driven by fear of what the future may bring if they hesitate. This belief creates a cycle where caution turns into preparation, preparation turns into readiness, and readiness keeps the world in a constant state of alert. Cities continue to live under the shadow of uncertainty, civilians hope for stability, and diplomats search for pathways that can prevent escalation before it becomes uncontrollable. As surveillance systems scan the horizon and political decisions shape the next steps, one truth becomes clear. This is not just a regional tension, but a global moment where perception, fear, and strategy intersect, and where the line between security and conflict grows thinner with every passing day. This isn't just a regional conflict anymore. What is happening in the Middle East is already reshaping the entire world. Oil prices have become unstable, rising and falling with every new development, while global markets react instantly to fear and uncertainty. Investors across major financial hubs are watching screens filled with red charts as political tensions continue to rise between powerful nations. Even public opinion in different countries is shifting rapidly as people around the world begin to realize that this war is not distant. It is connected to global survival, energy security, and economic stability. If the conflict continues to escalate, the world could face serious consequences, such as fuel shortages, rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and a global economic slowdown that affects both developed and developing nations. Shipping routes may become uncertain, trade could slow down, and industries across the globe may feel the pressure of rising costs and instability. What once seemed like their war is no longer limited to one region. It has already expanded its impact across borders, economies, and everyday lives. In today's interconnected world, no country is truly isolated from such a crisis, and the effects are already being felt in fuel stations, markets, airports, and households everywhere. This is no longer just a geopolitical issue. It is a global warning that reminds us how deeply connected the modern world really is, and how quickly regional conflict can become a worldwide challenge that affects you, no matter where you live. Right now, the world is watching a fragile moment unfold in silence, as talks of ceasefires and negotiations continue behind closed doors. Leaders and diplomats are attempting to pull the region back from the edge of chaos, sitting across long tables filled with maps, reports, and urgent proposals that could decide the future of entire nations. But even in these carefully controlled rooms, tension remains unshakable because every decision carries weight, every signature carries consequences, and every delay increases uncertainty. Yet despite these efforts, experts continue to warn that this calm is extremely fragile, almost temporary, because this conflict could restart at any moment, triggered by a single political shift, a military miscalculation, or a breakdown in communication that no one can fully predict. And beneath this surface of diplomacy, both sides are quietly reassessing their positions, preparing for all possible outcomes. As Iran may work to rebuild and strengthen its military capabilities over time, focusing on restoring deterrence and strategic balance, while Israel, maintaining its own security concerns, may consider the possibility of future preemptive actions if it perceives rising threats, creating a situation where mistrust continues to shape every calculation. And as analysts study satellite data, intelligence reports, and regional developments in real time, the warning signs remain constant, flashing across screens in secure command centers where experts track every movement, every statement, and every shift in posture, knowing that stability in this region has always been delicate. And history has repeatedly shown how quickly negotiations can collapse under pressure. This is why the region remains on the edge of uncertainty, not in immediate collapse, but in a sustained state of tension, where peace is discussed but not fully secured, where hope exists but is constantly tested by political realities, and where the future remains suspended between diplomacy and escalation, waiting for the next decision that could either hold the line or break it entirely. This is not just another conflict, and history rarely announces itself loudly when it begins to change the world. Yet beneath the surface of global headlines, beneath the silence of diplomatic meetings, and the steady tone of breaking news broadcasts, something far more complex is unfolding, a situation defined not only by visible tensions, but by deep strategic uncertainty, shifting alliances, and decisions being made behind closed doors that could influence the direction of entire regions for years to come. And while the world continues its daily rhythm, there are moments when that rhythm begins to feel fragile, as if one unexpected development, one miscalculation, or one sudden escalation in communication between global powers could alter everything we assume to be stable, because this is one of the most dangerous periods of our time, not necessarily defined by a single battlefield or a single event, but by the interconnected nature of modern geopolitics, where economics, technology, military readiness, energy security, and public perception are all tied together in a delicate balance that can shift without warning. And experts across the world continue to analyze satellite data, diplomatic signals, and intelligence reports, trying to understand not just what is happening now, but what could happen next. And in this environment, uncertainty itself becomes a force shaping markets, influencing governments, and affecting the everyday lives of ordinary people who may be far removed from centers of power, yet remain deeply impacted by their decisions. And as global leaders assess their options, weighing response against restraint, projection against diplomacy, the world watches closely without ever fully knowing what comes next. Because what happens next is not a simple continuation of current events, but a branching point that could determine whether tensions gradually move toward de-escalation through negotiation and communication, or whether misunderstandings and pressure dynamics push the situation towards something far more unstable. And in this fragile moment, every statement matters. Every signal is analyzed. Every movement is interpreted through layers of strategic meaning, creating an atmosphere where clarity is rare and speculation often fills the gaps left by limited information. And yet, amid all this complexity, there remains a possibility, however narrow, that dialogue can still shape outcomes, that institutions designed for peace and stability can still influence the direction of events, and that reasoned decision-making can prevent worst-case scenarios from becoming reality. But the question remains, one that echoes through diplomatic corridors and media discussions alike. Are we heading toward a path of measured resolution and eventual peace, where tensions slowly reduce and stability is restored through cooperation and compromise? Or are we unknowingly moving closer to something far more severe, a scenario shaped by escalation, misjudgment, and irreversible consequences that could reshape the future of global security? And in truth, no single observer, analyst, or leader can answer that question with certainty, because the future is not written in advance, but constructed moment by moment through choices made under pressure. And as the world stands at this uncertain threshold, it becomes clear that the coming days, weeks, and months will not simply be another chapter in ongoing global affairs, but potentially a defining era that tests the limits of diplomacy, resilience, and international cooperation in ways that will be studied long after the present moment has passed.